Hey everyone. Um, Stop everything you're doing right now because I literally got chills when this came through and I need you to hear every single word I'm about to say. There's someone in your life or someone who was in your life who put you in a terrible situation. And I don't mean a small inconvenience. I mean something that genuinely affected you, something that hurt you, something that changed your trajectory, something that you're still dealing with the consequences of even now. And the shocking truth I'm picking up on, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad timing or miscommunication or an unfortunate series of events. Welcome back. It's Anna. And this gave me chills because what I'm sensing is intentionality. Someone knowingly, consciously, deliberately put you in a position that harmed you. And you might still be giving them the benefit of the doubt, still making excuses for them, still telling yourself it wasn't that bad or they didn't mean it or you're overreacting, but you're not. You got to know this. You need to see this clearly because the truth will set you free even if it hurts first. Let me break down what I'm feeling so intensely right now. You may have a situation in your past or present where someone's actions led to significant negative consequences for you, maybe professionally, maybe financially, maybe emotionally, maybe in your reputation, maybe in your relationships, maybe in your mental health. And when you look back at it, the pieces don't quite add up. The timeline feels off. The explanations feel thin. The coincidences feel too convenient. But you've been pushing away the uncomfortable conclusion that's been trying to surface. Some people experience this as a nagging feeling they can't shake, a sense that something was wrong about how things went down, a suspicion that there was more happening behind the scenes than they were aware of. It might feel like you're being paranoid for questioning what happened, like you should just accept the surface explanation and move on. Like digging deeper is you being bitter or unable to let go or creating drama where there isn't any. But what if your instinct is right? What if that nagging feeling is your intuition trying to protect you by revealing truth you've been avoiding? Let me just stop here for a second because this is heavy and I need you to really sit with this. This reflection invites you to consider, what if the terrible situation you ended up in wasn't random bad luck, but the result of someone's calculated choices? You may be thinking of a specific person right now, a specific situation. And as you're reading this, things are clicking into place. Moments that didn't make sense are suddenly making sense. Behaviors that seemed odd are suddenly revealing their true nature. It's possible you've been giving this person credit for good intentions while they were actually operating from self-interest. You assumed they cared about your well-being when they actually cared more about their own agenda. You believed they were looking out for you when they were actually positioning you for their benefit. And the worst part? They might have let you believe it was your fault, that you made poor choices, that you should have known better, that you brought this on yourself. In some situations, people will harm you and then make you feel responsible for the harm. They'll shift blame. They'll rewrite history. They'll gaslight you into questioning your own memory and perception of events. Hold on. I need to get specific about what this terrible situation might have looked like. There's probably a moment in your life where everything shifted, where something happened that put you at a disadvantage, that cost you something valuable. That set you back in ways you're still recovering from. It's possible this was a professional betrayal. Someone took credit for your work, someone sabotaged an opportunity you had, someone spread information that damaged your reputation, someone positioned you to fail while making themselves look good. Or maybe it was financial. Someone convinced you to make a decision that benefited them but hurt you. Someone borrowed money and never returned it while you struggled. Someone used your resources without regard for how it affected you. Someone manipulated you into a situation that cost you significantly. Or maybe it was relational. Someone interfered in your relationships. Someone spread lies about you to people you cared about. Someone created conflict between you and others for their own purposes. Someone isolated you from your support system. Or maybe it was emotional. Someone exploited your vulnerabilities. Someone used information you shared in confidence against you. Someone manipulated your feelings to control your behavior. Someone made you doubt your own reality and sanity. Some people experience multiple types of harm from the same person. The betrayal is layered. The damage is comprehensive. The situation is complex. You may be still untangling all the ways this person's actions affected you, still discovering new consequences you hadn't recognized yet, still realizing the full extent of what was done to you. This reflection invites you to consider what situation in your life still doesn't sit right when you think about it. It might be something everyone else has moved on from, something people tell you to let go of, something you feel you should be over by now. But you're not over it because you haven't fully processed the truth of it. You're still operating under the false narrative that it was an accident or a mistake or just bad luck. Let me talk about what intentionality actually looks like in harmful behavior. It's possible this person knew what they were doing would hurt you. They could predict the consequences. They understood the impact, and they did it anyway because their needs or wants or agenda was more important to them than your well-being. Some people are very calculated in how they harm others. They don't do it impulsively or emotionally. They do it strategically. They plan, they position, they execute, and then they cover their tracks. You may have witnessed behaviors that seemed caring on the surface but were actually manipulative underneath. They asked questions that seemed like interest but were actually information gathering. They offered help that seemed generous but actually created dependency or debt. They gave advice that seemed supportive but actually steered you wrong. And the whole time you thought they were on your side. You thought they cared. You thought you could trust them. This reflection invites you to consider who in your life presented themselves as helpful while actually being harmful. It might be painful to acknowledge because it means you were fooled, because it means someone you trusted betrayed that trust, because it means you have to revise your entire understanding of a relationship or period of your life. But acknowledging truth is always better than maintaining comfortable lies. Even when truth is uncomfortable, there's something about timing that's important in understanding this situation. It's possible this person acted when you were vulnerable, when you were already dealing with something hard, when your defenses were down, when you needed support and they exploited that need instead of meeting it genuinely. Some people are predatory in their timing. They wait for moments when you're weakened, when you're desperate, when you're unlikely to question or resist. That's when they make their move. You may have been going through something difficult when this person entered your life or when they shifted their behavior toward you. You were struggling and they seemed like a solution. They seemed like help. They seemed like exactly what you needed, but they weren't help. They were an opportunist recognizing an opportunity. This reflection invites you to consider, did this person show up or shift their approach when you were at a low point? It might reveal a pattern that they're attracted to vulnerability not out of compassion but out of calculation, that they see weakness as an opening, not a reason to be gentle. Let me slow down and talk about why this person might have done what they did. It's possible their motivation was jealousy. You had something they wanted, success they envied, relationships they coveted, qualities they lacked. And instead of dealing with their own feelings, they acted to diminish you. Some people can't handle other people's success or happiness. It makes them feel inadequate. So they find ways to bring people down, to create problems, to sabotage. Not openly usually, but subtly, through undermining, through interference, through strategic harm. You may have been threatening to this person without even knowing it. Your mere existence at a certain level triggered something in them. Your progress highlighted their stagnation. Your joy irritated their misery. Or maybe their motivation was self-advancement. Hurting you created an opportunity for them. Taking you out of the picture opened a door they wanted to walk through. Your failure facilitated their success. Or maybe their motivation was control. They needed to feel powerful, and making you vulnerable gave them that feeling. They needed to dominate, and putting you in a terrible situation established their dominance. Or maybe their motivation was punishment. You did something real or imagined that offended them. And instead of addressing it directly, they retaliated. They made you pay. They created consequences that felt disproportionate to any actual wrong. This reflection invites you to consider what might have motivated this person to harm you. Understanding motivation doesn't excuse behavior, but it can help you make sense of senseless seeming actions. It can help you see that this was about them and their issues, not about your worthiness or deservingness. There's something about how this person covered their tracks that's revealing. It's possible they were very careful to maintain plausible deniability, to make sure that if questioned, they could claim innocence, that they could point to alternative explanations, that they could make you look paranoid or vindictive for accusing them. Some people are experts at harmful behavior that can't be proven. They operate in gray areas. They do things that are clearly wrong but technically defensible. They harm you in ways that are hard to explain to others. You may have tried to tell people what this person did and found that it sounded less serious when you said it out loud than it felt in your lived experience. The harm was real, but the evidence was circumstantial. The impact was significant, but the action seemed small. And this person counted on that. They counted on you not being able to make a compelling case. They counted on others giving them the benefit of the doubt. They counted on their reputation protecting them more than truth protecting you. This reflection invites you to consider, did this person position themselves so that exposing them would make you look bad? It might have kept you silent, kept you from seeking support or justice, kept you isolated with your knowledge of what really happened. Let me talk about what you might be currently experiencing as a result of this situation. It's possible you're still dealing with consequences. Financial strain from their actions, damaged relationships from their interference, professional setbacks from their sabotage, emotional trauma from their manipulation. Some people never fully recover from what was done to them, not because they're weak, but because the harm was significant and the resources to heal are limited. You may be working harder than you should have to because someone set you back. You may be rebuilding trust that someone destroyed. You may be repairing a reputation that someone damaged. You may be healing from wounds that someone intentionally inflicted. And meanwhile, this person might be thriving. They might have faced no consequences. They might have benefited from what they did to you. They might be living well while you're still struggling with the aftermath of their actions. And that's infuriating. That's unjust. That's the shocking truth that makes this so hard to process. This reflection invites you to consider, what are you still dealing with as a result of what this person did? Naming it matters. Acknowledging the ongoing impact matters. recognizing that you're not just being dramatic or holding a grudge. You're actually still affected by real harm. There's something about your response to this situation that I need to address. It's possible you've been blaming yourself, telling yourself you should have known better, should have seen it coming, should have protected yourself better, should have been smarter or stronger or more vigilant. But that's not fair to you. You trusted someone who presented themselves as trustworthy. You believed someone who lied convincingly. You were vulnerable with someone who exploited that vulnerability. That doesn't make you stupid. That makes you human. That makes you someone who operates with good faith and expects others to do the same. Some people take advantage of good people specifically because good people don't expect others to be malicious. They exploit trust because trustworthy people assume others are trustworthy too. You may be carrying shame about what happened, feeling embarrassed that you didn't see through this person, feeling foolish for trusting them, feeling weak for being hurt by them. But the shame belongs to them, not you. They're the one who acted with ill intent. They're the one who harmed someone who trusted them. They're the one who should be ashamed. This reflection invites you to consider, what if you stopped blaming yourself for someone else's harmful choices? It might shift the weight you're carrying. It might help you see yourself as someone who was wronged rather than someone who did wrong by trusting. Let me talk about what this person might be doing currently. It's possible they've moved on completely. They're not thinking about you. They're not losing sleep over what they did. They're not carrying guilt or remorse. Or maybe they are thinking about you, but not with regret. Maybe with satisfaction. Maybe reviewing how well their plan worked. Maybe proud of how they got away with it. Or maybe they've convinced themselves they didn't do anything wrong. They've rewritten the story in their mind. They've justified their actions. They've made themselves the victim or the hero rather than the perpetrator. Some people are capable of significant self-deception. They can harm others and genuinely believe they were right to do so. They can cause damage and feel no responsibility for it. You may be hoping this person feels bad about what they did, hoping they realize the impact, hoping they'll acknowledge it or apologize or make amends. But they might never do that. They might never give you the closure or validation you deserve. This reflection invites you to consider, what if you had to find peace without this person ever acknowledging what they did? Because your healing can't be dependent on their accountability. Your peace can't wait for their recognition of wrong. You have to find your way forward, whether they ever admit their role or not. There's something about other people's responses to this situation that might be affecting you. It's possible people didn't believe you when you tried to explain what happened, or they minimized it, or they suggested you were overreacting, or they told you to just move on. Some people don't want to believe that someone they know is capable of calculated harm. It challenges their worldview. It makes them uncomfortable. So they'd rather doubt you than doubt the person who harmed you. You may have felt isolated in your understanding of what really happened, like you were the only one who saw clearly, like everyone else was being fooled and you couldn't make them see. And that isolation made the harm worse. Because not only were you dealing with what this person did, you were also dealing with not being believed or supported by others. This reflection invites you to consider who failed to support you when you needed them to see truth. It might have taught you harsh lessons about who's really in your corner, about who's willing to believe you even when it's uncomfortable, about who values truth over comfort. Let me talk about what recognizing this truth makes possible for you now. It's possible that fully acknowledging what this person did and that it was intentional actually frees you. It releases you from the burden of trying to make sense of senseless behavior. It gives you permission to be angry. It validates your ongoing struggle. Some people spend years trying to understand why something happened to them. They cycle through explanations. They blame themselves. They make excuses for others. And all of that mental energy keeps them stuck. But when you accept the simple truth that someone harmed you intentionally, you can stop trying to find benign explanations. You can stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. You can stop carrying responsibility for their choices. You may find that this clarity, even though it's painful, is actually liberating. It's the truth. And truth, even hard truth, is always more empowering than comfortable lies. This reflection invites you to consider, is less than #0. 5# is greater than what becomes possible when you stop making excuses for someone who harmed you. You might be able to actually protect yourself, to set boundaries you've been hesitant to set, to end connections you've been maintaining out of obligation or hope, to warn others who might be in danger from this person. There's something about justice that needs to be addressed. It's possible you're never going to get justice in a traditional sense. This person might never face consequences. They might never be exposed. They might never apologize or make restitution. And that's hard to accept. We want to believe that people who do wrong suffer for it, that harm comes back to those who cause it, that karma or justice or consequences are real and reliable. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes people get away with terrible things. Sometimes harm goes unpunished. Sometimes perpetrators thrive while victims struggle. Some people get stuck in waiting for justice, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for this person to get what they deserve. And that waiting keeps them connected to the person and the situation in unhealthy ways. You may need to find your own version of justice, not revenge, not wishing harm on them, but creating your own peace and success despite what they did, living well as the best response to those who wanted you to fail. This reflection invites you to consider, what would justice look like for you if traditional accountability never comes? It might be about your healing, your growth, your reclamation of what was taken, your refusal to let what they did define your entire life. Let me slow down and talk about forgiveness, because someone's probably told you that you need to forgive. It's possible you're not ready to forgive, and that's okay. Forgiveness is not a requirement for healing. It's not something you owe anyone. It's not a moral failing to hold on to anger at someone who genuinely wronged you. Some people use forgiveness as a weapon against victims. They pressure people to forgive before they've even processed the harm. They suggest that holding on to anger is toxic, while ignoring that the anger is a valid response to real wrong. You may feel pressured to forgive this person, to let it go, to move on, to stop being bitter or holding grudges. But you're not required to forgive someone who harmed you intentionally and shows no remorse. You're allowed to protect yourself by maintaining your anger. You're allowed to remember clearly what someone is capable of. This reflection invites you to consider, what if protecting yourself matters more than performing forgiveness? Maybe someday you'll genuinely forgive. Maybe you won't. Either way, your worth isn't determined by your ability to absolve people who hurt you. There's something about patterns that's important here. It's possible this isn't the only time someone has put you in a terrible situation. There might be a pattern in your life of people taking advantage, of people exploiting your kindness or trust, of people positioning you for their benefit at your expense. Some people are targeted repeatedly because they're empathetic and trusting and forgiving. Predatory people recognize these qualities and exploit them. You may be realizing as you process this situation that similar dynamics have played out before. Different people, different circumstances, but the same basic pattern of someone using you and leaving you worse off. And that pattern needs to break. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you need to upgrade your protective mechanisms. You need to get better at recognizing red flags. You need to trust your instincts sooner. This reflection invites you to consider, what patterns do you need to interrupt to protect yourself going forward? It might mean being less immediately trusting, more cautious with vulnerability, more protective of your resources, more willing to question motives, more comfortable with setting boundaries even when it feels uncomfortable. Let me talk about what you need to do with this information now. It's not about revenge. It's not about confrontation necessarily. It's about integration, about accepting the truth of what happened and what that means for how you move forward. It's possible you need to completely cut ties with this person if you haven't already. No contact, no updates through mutual friends, no monitoring their life. Complete separation so you can heal without being re-traumatized. Or maybe you can't cut ties because of work or family or shared responsibilities. In that case, you need strong boundaries. Limited sharing, surface level interaction only, no vulnerability, no trust. Some people need to tell their story, to speak their truth, even if the person never hears it or acknowledges it, to stop protecting their perpetrator's reputation at the cost of their own healing. You may need to seek support, therapy to process the trauma, friends who believe you, communities where your experience is validated, resources that help you rebuild what was damaged. This reflection invites you to consider, what do you need to fully honor the truth of what was done to you? You remain in complete control of how you respond to this recognition. You can continue to minimize what happened. You can keep giving this person excuses. You can keep carrying the shame that belongs to them. Or you can face the shocking truth. You can acknowledge that someone deliberately harmed you. You can stop protecting them and start protecting yourself. The choice is yours. It always has been. You may notice that just reading this has shifted something. Maybe anger that's been suppressed is surfacing. Maybe clarity that's been avoided is arriving. Maybe validation that's been needed is landing. Whatever you're feeling, honor it, all of it. Let yourself feel what you feel without judgment. Take what resonates, discard what doesn't, trust what you know. Before we close, I need to ask you something heavy. Who put you in a terrible situation, and what was their real motivation? Can you name it now? Drop it in the comments if you need to. Speak it out loud. And what would change if you stopped making excuses for someone who intentionally harmed you? What becomes possible when you face the shocking truth instead of the comfortable lie? Gave me chills because the truth is chilling. Someone who put you in a terrible situation, they knew what they were doing. Shocking truth, it was intentional, it was calculated, it was deliberate, and you need to know that. You need to see that clearly. You need to stop protecting them from your own rightful anger. Not eventually. Right now. Today. Trust yourself with this. Trust that your instincts about what happened were right. Trust that you're not being dramatic or paranoid or bitter. Trust that recognizing intentional harm is the first step to truly healing from it. You don't owe anyone who harmed you your continued grace or benefit of the doubt or protection of their image. I'll see you in the next one. And listen. The truth will hurt before it heals, but it will heal. And you deserve the freedom that comes from seeing clearly what was done to you and by whom. Face the truth. Honor your anger. Protect yourself going forward. You deserve better.